Hello and welcome to the new episode of Taboola Talks, where we go beyond the surface and dive deep into the human aspects of what makes our leaders who they are. We look at their success stories, challenges, and how they dealt with them. In this episode, we explore the journey of Nadav, who leads our global brand and agency development and has close to 2 decades of experience and has seen the evolution of the ad industry from its very nascent stage. Besides doing what he does at Taboola, Nadav has spent close to 10 years at Google and has been in various different roles, which tells you that his understanding of the entire digital ecosystem there's a lot that we can actually learn from him. Besides this, Nadav is also married and has three wonderful kids who are aged 13, 10, and 6. Thank you so much, Nadav, for joining me. And before I start with any of the other questions, how are you doing today and how has the year been?
Hey, Shashi, thanks for having me. I'm excited about this, and thank you for doing this with Taboola. It's really a pleasure to have the stage and the audience.
Fantastic. So, Nadav, I just spoke about the 2 decades of professional experience that you have. Looking back, uh, how do you think you discovered the career path, and what do you think were some of the very critical turning points in your career?
It's an interesting question, Shashi. I think as you grow up and as you kind of progress in your careers, I think there are many moments that have an impact on your life, on your career decisions, and you don't necessarily know in the moment. Yeah, a lot of times you know when you look back. So, I was born in Israel. I'm a son of immigrants that came from Argentina to Israel in the 70s, and I lived abroad a few years. So even from the get-go, when I retrospectively look at my life, I'm proud of my Jewish heritage. I am deeply connected to my Latin background. I appreciate my European upbringing, and I identify myself as an Israeli. And as I think about this sentence that I just said, I think that's already had an impact on my life. If I think further down in unique moments of my upbringing, I had the opportunity to study in an American high school in Europe, and one of the things that was immediately apparent to me and resonated with me during my high school years is diversity. So growing up in Israel, everybody's Israeli, everybody's kind of the same. Most of the people that you know are Jewish. And then suddenly when I went to high school, I had the unique opportunity to be in the same class with people from different religions, from different backgrounds, from different nationalities. And I think that had a tremendous impact on my life and my life choices. Another thing that was very visible in my high school year was sports. And it was, I think, the combination of team sports. I used to play basketball as a kid, and also individual sports. So I used to run track. That gave me that balance between the impact of working as a team, but also the need to be self-sufficient and to challenge myself, always try harder. So I think even in high school, there were moments that had an impact on my life. If I think back to my army days, I think the army had a tremendous impact on how I shaped as a person. I'll call out only two things because we can talk about the army for a long time. But one thing is, the ideal that you serve your nation. So you serve a higher purpose, right? That was deeply rooted in my upbringing, and it was deeply rooted in my time in the army. And I think the notion of purpose, right, is something that impacted me. And when I looked to my professional career and I decided to join the tech industry, I was looking for companies with purpose. Okay, and still today, I'm always looking for what is the purpose of what I'm doing. So I think that was something that had an impact on me from the army. The second thing that I wanted to point out is just a sense of responsibility, right? So at the age of 20 in the army, you're suddenly given responsibility for people's life. You command, or I had a chance to command the team, right? And you command them in the field. And that just, it's a very humbling experience, right? Because suddenly that taught me a lot about people. That taught me a lot about motivation, about a vision, going back to purpose. And it taught me a lot about camaraderie. So I think that is, so I talked about high school, I talked about the army. I think the third thing that I'll call out as moments in time that kind of shaped my career is just very, sometimes it's by chance. So I had the chance to grow in Israel in the early millennium, right? So just at the turn of the millennia, and that was when Israel became a startup nation. So I was at the heart of kind of seeing the impact of technology on the world. And it was used, right? Microprocessing capabilities, mobile phones, search and social media, satellite imagery, communication, the gaming industry, journalism, everything was coming online. Okay, everything was coming online. And I was fresh out of university, fresh out of my MBA, and I knew I wanted to be part of this huge changes happening to the world. So just wanted to call out when you ask, what has impacted your professional journey? Again, I think there are many points, many instances. Sometimes you can't put your finger on them on the moment, but these are three things I wanted to call out that had a tremendous impact on my life.
Sure. I'm actually very intrigued by the journey that you had, especially being on the field at the age of 20. Now, when you speak of purpose, when you speak of motivation, I mean, these are two completely different things, right? One is being in a professional setup wherein there are, I mean, let me put it this way, you do something, there is something for you to benefit from it. You do well in your career, you get promotions, there are those gratifications, versus being on the field, wherein, yes, there is a sense of purpose, you're actually doing something for your country, but then it comes with a much larger risk. So, having handled something like this at the age of 20, what is this? I mean, how does this help you with your psyche, with the way in which you manage to communicate with people? Because if you could do that at the age of 20, I think from there on, what you are managing, especially when you look at the risk associated with it, it's far lesser. So do you think somewhere it had a massive role to play in helping you become who you are today?
Look, I mean, obviously, the risk is a different type of risk, and what you learn from it is how to cope with uncertainty, how to navigate ambiguity, when to charge forward versus when to hold back and rethink your strategy. Those are all learnings that could be applied in a business scenario. And I think I've started to learn them when I was 18, and I'm still learning. Okay. And I think every year, every job, every organization that I belong to, I'm learning about these things and I'm perfecting them, and they keep changing, right? Because the goal keeps on changing, the economy keeps on changing, the environment keeps on changing, but the principles are the same. And I think while the field and the business environment are very different, some of the principles that revolve around people are the same. Like I never worked only for me personally. The money was never enough, right? The salary, the commission, hitting the quota, that was part of what I had to do, but it was never enough. I had to find a higher purpose, and I think whether it was in my first job after uni, whether it was in Google, whether it is in Taboola, there's a higher purpose, and I think at Taboola we're very good at identifying why we exist. How do we help journalism? What does it mean for the industry? And that was always something that I tried to bring to my team and translate it to the level from the organization, and then scale it down to my team and my organization and how that applies, right? And I think people are motivated by purpose and by vision. And so from that point of view, it's very similar. It's very similar to the Army. It's very similar to other organizations.
Okay, so I just want to take a little deeper into what you just mentioned. Now, as you mentioned, the principles remain the same, but then as the industry keeps on evolving, as there are changes happening, you probably have to kind of then maneuver through those things, maybe make a few subtle changes. Reflecting back on your career from your early jobs, early roles, to moving into Google, to then moving into Taboola, and also the transitioning of roles from one to another, could you probably share maybe one or two instances of how you went from one role to another and then had to probably learn something to actually help you do that a lot better?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. The transition from one role to another, or from one company to another, for me, I'll say two things, and they're going to be opposite. The first thing I'll say is that I always believe you as a person, as an individual, need to own your career path. Okay, so you need to be very intentional about, hey, this is what I'm doing today. That's what I want to do next, right? And the way I try to think about this when I think about my career is I always try to think about, what do I want to do 2 roles from now, and what will it take to get there? And that was kind of the direction that I tried to find in my next role. So an example of this, if I think about Google, so I used to manage the Google business in 2010 in Israel, in the domestic market in Israel. So I was working with advertisers that marketed to Israel. And, we introduced all the innovative technologies that Google brought to the digital industry back then. Search, Google Display Network, and then we started with YouTube and video, and we introduced Google Analytics as measurement capability. So I was working in a very local domestic market. And one of the things that I knew I wanted to go back to was the international, right? So I wanted to go back to managing a global scope and international scope. So with that in mind, I had an ambition to relocate. I had an ambition to work in a headquarter position in Google. And I found that opportunity, and I created that opportunity. And in 2015, I relocated with my family to London to work in EMEA's headquarter, managing YouTube's go-to-market innovation for EMEA. So from one point, you need to set a path. You're the owner of your career. You're the owner of your life. And, managers will help you fulfill your dreams, and organization will be supportive, but you need to set the course. And now I'll say something that's completely the opposite, which is a lot of the changes that I had weren't planned. And I actually never looked for a job. I think I'm either lucky or poor because I never looked for a job. I don't know if it's good luck or bad luck, but my next job always came from previous relationships. Okay. And when I left my university, I was offered a job by one of the board of directors of the university. When I was sick of that, by coincidence, one of my clients offered me a job at their company. And then one of my friends offered me a job at Google. And one of my ex-colleagues from Google called me up and said, come and join Taboola. Okay. So, I haven't had a huge amount of jobs. I actually am old school. I stay at the job for a few years. But the transition was always natural to me based on relationships that I've created and a network that I created before. So yeah, on the one hand, you have to strive and plan and own your career path. On the other hand, things will happen. And if you build a good network and a good relationship, you have to be ready for them to happen and make a decision whether they're happening the right timing for you.
No, I mean, as contradictory as it sounds, but I think the one thing which actually connects both is the fact that people who have worked with you have obviously seen that you are someone who probably is looking ahead, is probably kind of planning for the future, and then probably that is what was one of the reasons as to why they felt that when they moved on to something else, or when they felt like they needed someone to actually come and take on a more senior role, maybe that's when actually all of these qualities that you displayed while you were in the current role probably helped. So in a way, I would say that both of these are actually connected.
Well, thank you. And when I talk with my team, or when I talk with anybody in Taboola, and I had a chance to talk with a lot of Taboolars that are not on my team that wanted to have a general career conversation, I try to apply those principles in our discussion. What do you do good? What do you want to improve? And where do you want to be in 4 or 5 years from now? And what are the stepping stones that we as an organization can help build so that you're ready in 4 or 5 years from now for that ambition that you have? Now, a plan is a plan. And then reality happens and it might divert from the original plan, but have a plan and then be ready to move, right?
Sure. Fantastic. On that great note, so while you had these great plans in place, you were doing all of these wonderful things at Google, building out all these products, planning for the future, how did Taboola happen?
Sorry, planning for the future. Say that again.
So, while you were working on all of these great things and you had your own plans, how did Taboola happen?
How did Taboola happen? So, in 2019, we were living in London, and my wife and I decided that it's time to come back to Israel after 4 years in London. And we took the opportunity to also think about our careers. And after 9 years at Google, I had decided that it was time for me to move on. And I wanted to apply all the knowledge that I've had from this big organization, Google, and find a smaller organization where I can make a bigger impact. One of the things I loved about Google is that it's a large organization, and it's an amazing school as an employee, as a manager, as a leader. But you often feel like a small cog in a big wheel, right? It's a huge organization, right? And what I wanted to look for is an organization where I can have a bigger impact on. So I came to Israel for 3 days. My intention was to meet leaders of the industry in Israel, VCs. I already had like 20 meetings lined up. I get to the airport. This is a true story. I get to the airport. I pick up my luggage from the carrier, and I get a phone call that I didn't recognize. I pick up, and it's an old colleague that used to work with me at Google. And he's like, "Hey, Nadav, listen, we're looking for a VP role in strategy and operations. Maybe you know somebody from your network." He didn't know I was in Israel. He didn't know I was coming back to Israel. He didn't know I was looking for my next opportunity. So from the airport, I took a taxi. We met for dinner. And I think the next morning I was already at Eldad's office. What really clicked for me with Taboola are, I think, 3 things. One, I saw a company with a vision. I saw a company with a purpose, and that purpose was relevant to what I thought I could bring. It was relevant from an industry point of view. It was relevant from, just the goal of growing advertisers and advertiser success. I thought I could contribute. That's one. The second thing is people. So I met a management team. I interviewed, I don't know, like 10 people interviewed me, and every single one was impressive, and every single one was different. So they completed each other, right? And that was really inspiring. And the third thing was the potential for growth. So I saw a company that was doing at the time, I think, $1 billion a year, and I could easily see that company grow to $10 billion. Okay, I mean, nothing's easy, but I could see it. I could still see it, right? I can still see how this company can 5x and 10x over time. So those three things clicked for me, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity that I got. I was offered the job, and I said immediately yes. I started working from London three months after that interview.
Awesome. So we are all glad that before you got a chance to meet with any of the other people that you had actually lined up the meetings with, your ex-colleague called you at the right time. Things happened at the right time. And here we are. So we are very glad for that. So now moving on to how do we go from where we are to $10 billion and beyond? And I think that's where in your current role, if you could probably shed some light on how under the current climate where again we've been going through this sort of a recession, there have been all these challenging things that have been happening in the market, so there is a bit of perhaps a mindset change the advertisers have. So under these circumstances, what do you think is Taboola's branding offering that makes it very compelling for the advertisers, and why should they lap onto it?
Shashi, I think that's a great question, and I do believe that Taboola is very well positioned to grow and to 5x and 10x our business within this industry. First of all, you're right. The economic situation has been very challenging. It feels like the economy has been on a roller coaster since COVID, since 2020, with ups and downs. I mean, we had the hardest years in human history almost in 2020 when everything was locked down. And then 2021 was a great financial year for us, and we IPO'd. And then 2022, the economic crisis, and now 2023, we're still not out of it. So it definitely feels like it's turbulent times. And in turbulent times, companies tend to rethink about their strategies, focus on the bottom line, make sure that they have a good ROI for any investment they make, and that includes marketing. And that is an opportunity. Okay, that is an opportunity for us because we can be much more. First of all, we can be much more ROI driven. But in our nature, we provide transparency, we provide accountability, and that's what marketers are looking for. And so, what's left to answer is not whether we have a right to fight in this field, but is how do we convince advertisers that we're a better solution for them. Mm-hmm. Now, I have to say, you know, in Taboola, we talk a lot about performance, right, or branding versus performance. So as you know, in my career, I've always been in technology, but I've always been on the business side. And in my humble opinion, the conversation between branding and performance, that conversation never happens. It never happens in the real field. It happens when we talk around the table in Taboola and we design product strategies, but it never happens in the field. You never sat in front of a client and he told you, I want only branding, or give me performance, I don't care about that. Conversation never happens. Marketers don't speak like that. They don't think like that. Marketers think about, for example, they'll say, I want to grow my market share, which really means I want to grow sales, right? Or they say, I want to drive more traffic to my website, which really means I want more engagement with my product, okay? And if we take out the dichotomy between branding and performance, and we start thinking like marketers, then actually Taboola is amazing at capturing people's attention, and Taboola is great at driving users to take action. And if we hone in on those principles, hey, we actually have the scale, you know, we can reach our audiences, we know how to drive to get their attention, and we know how to drive them to take action, right? And that's what's exciting. We have the scale, we have the technology and the algorithm to optimize for action, for performance, okay? Whatever performance means for you, dear advertiser, okay? And we're always innovating. And that's something that I'm really proud of and I want to see accelerate over the future. So yeah, so I think we can help advertisers drive their marketing objectives, and we can tailor our solutions based on their client objectives, their creative assets, maybe the verticals in which they operate. And if we do that right, and we act in a way of transparency, and we build relationships of trust with our partners and advertisers and clients, I think we are in a path to be able to grow and really make an impact. Now, the industry never stops, right? Our ad tech industry is always looking for the next new shiny capability, and regulation is continuously also developing, and we need to move with the times. We need to be agile. We need to understand what's coming before it's coming and try to be more innovative, more rigorous, more advanced than the competition. But we have the infrastructure to be able to do that. And now it's about fine-tuning our capabilities. So yeah, I think we have an amazing positioning to grow.
So we have massive scale. We have a great R&D team, which is constantly looking at making the algo, making the product a lot better than what it already is. We have great people. We have this massive infrastructure across. When I say infrastructure, it's not just about all the servers that we have, but also the people that we have, all the systems that we have put in place across all the different markets. Now, given all this, what do you expect from 2023? And what would you say would be your biggest priority?
Right. So first of all, for the people who are listening, this is recorded on May 2023. So I'm already thinking 2024, man. But 2023, we're in it. There's a few things that are really top of mind for me as I think about our focus areas. And many of them have been shared time and time again by our leadership team in many different forms. But I think the first thing that I think about is advertiser success. And when I say advertiser success, I mean the ability to serve advertisers of different types. We have a growth organization, we have an enterprise organizations, we have clients that are buying us through programmatic channels, serving them through various channels and regardless of their size, and really making sure that we're building solutions for them that will keep them on Taboola. So retention is key. And I think that's a huge area of challenge that we're still fighting to solve. So advertiser success and retention is one key area of focus. The second area that I think we have that is top of mind for me is perception, the perception of Taboola in the market. And specifically, I think we have a unique opportunity now to shift the perception and to re-educate the market on native. Okay, we have Yahoo becoming a major partner for us. We have other strategic opportunities lined up. And I think native as a concept is something that we can be proud of and re-educate the market. It's a unique environment where you create a win-win-win. It's a win for the advertiser because, to your point, they can get the scale and they can get the performance. It's a win for the publisher because it keeps the journalism and it keeps the publisher ecosystem alive. It's a win for the audience because it's a good experience. It's a non-interactive ad experience, which creates an opportunity of the moment of next, or an opportunity of continuous experience on the publisher sites. So it's a win-win-win. And I think we have a perception challenge that is something that we need to focus on this year. Obviously, Yahoo is the third area of focus. It's a unique project. It's very complex, but it's huge. Right? It's huge for Taboola. It will grow our scale. It will grow our revenue. It will improve our offering from a data perspective, from a format perspective. And the partnership with Yahoo as a company is also something that really thrills me. So that's the third one. The fourth one, and this is something that you've heard a lot from our leadership team, is e-commerce. So e-commerce is a growing part of the advertising spend on digital. I think there's predictions that ads related to e-commerce will grow to more than $100 billion within the next 15 months. So it's a huge area for us. And we have Connexity, we have DCO, we have other solutions that really allow us to fight in that space and to help advertisers achieve their e-commerce goals. So that's the fourth area. And the last area is always people for me. Not last in the order of importance, I just say it last, but people are always a priority in my point of view, whether it's really focusing on talent plans for people who have been in Taboola for a while and want to grow, really honing in on what are the skills that we're looking for in Taboola and identifying the people who are able to become the next leaders in the company, working on initiatives such as diversity, equity, and inclusion that I talked about in the beginning of my talk, and really giving people a sense of purpose. So people are always a priority for me. So I think 5 priorities. I hope that's enough for 2023 and 2024.
Awesome. I mean, to be fair, you are right. We're almost done with half of the year. So I think whatever things we spoke of goes without saying that perhaps some of this will also roll into 2024. And with some of the things that you mentioned, with Yahoo coming in, I think we are in for exciting times. 2023, the rest of it, 2024 is going to be massive for us. So thank you, Nadav, for answering all of these. But before I let you go, the next round, the questions here are penned down with an intent of getting a little bit into your head. So you shouldn't think too long and just say whatever is in the top of your head. So are you ready for this?
Is this like one word or do you want a sentence?
A sentence is good enough, so long as you're not taking a lot of time to think about it. Just give an answer. I mean, a couple of sentences also works.
I'm ready.
All right. So starting with something I am expecting you would have never been asked. Name holds power. So other than Nadav, what would you like your name to be? And do you know why you were named Nadav?
So Nadav, it comes from a root of three letters in Hebrew that mean generosity. So I think the meaning of the word obviously was given by my parents, but I think that's what they had in mind. Uh, um, Other than Nadav, and if I could change my name, I mean something with luck. I think luck plays an important part of the role of the world. If I could be named Lucky, but and not really, but I think luck is something that we'd all be blessed with a bit of.
All right. What's your favorite book or podcast that you keep going back to?
So one of the books that I read that had an impact was The Startup Nation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a new book anymore, but it really talks about how Israel came together as a country historically, and now all of that history created what then became the Startup Nation.
Mm-hmm.
How the army plays a part in that, how the lack of natural resources plays a part in that. So it's a really interesting book. With regards to podcasts, I've been, lately because of recent events, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about democracy
Mm-hmm.
and the tension between democracy and liberalism. We tend to live in a liberal democracy, but there's a huge tension between democracy and liberalism. And I think we're seeing that tension in the US, we're seeing that tension in Israel, we're seeing that tension in other Western countries at the moment. And I think it's an interesting concept. So I deep dived to learn more about it.
That's a whole separate conversation which could take an entire session by itself.
Trying
Moving
to summarize
on.
in a sentence for you.
Moving on. If you could show your kids only one movie, what movie would it be and why?
Wow. Wow. If I could show my kids one movie, what would it be? My God. Pinocchio? I don't know. I gotta come back to you on that one.
All
Gosh,
right. Okay, the
I'll
next
come, I'll
one.
come back to you. We'll do this one. Cut. We'll do this one at the end. We'll come back to it. Oh my God.
Fair enough. Okay, they say shoes say a lot about a person. So what are your favorite shoes and why?
Cool. I love comfortable sneakers that look good. So I'm still playing around with them. I have a couple of Nikes. I have a couple of Puma. I recently bought a Lecoq Sportif one, but generally it needs to look good, not be too much of a scream, and I like comfort. So if I could walk into a meeting but also go for a run, that's my ideal shoes.
Awesome. By the way, I just saw the trailer of this movie yesterday again. Of the I think it's called Air Jordan or Air Nike, whatever. It's the movie about how the Air Jordan brand came about. And there is this line towards the end of the trailer wherein this guy tells Jordan's mom, "It's just a pair of shoe," and she says, "Till my son gets into it." So once he gets into it, it's no longer going to be just a shoe. It's going to be like much bigger than that. And how true was she? All right. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? Rapid. It's got to be quick.
The ability to see the future. I mean, I'd love to be able to understand where things are going to and then help people get there faster.
Awesome. What's the best vacation you've ever taken?
Oh, so after my vacations today tend to be shorter, but I took a 1 year vacation after the army and I traveled across the entirety of South America, one country after another.
Wow.
I explored the amazing views of that continent, and I had a ton of fun.
Wow. Well, Frank, I'm just trying to still think of it. 1 year of vacation seems awesome. All right. So, if you could eliminate one thing from your daily routine, what would it be?
That moment after lunch where you're tired, I would eliminate that. I would skip the tired part and push through it.
All right. In my 20s, I wish I had this.
Say that again. I couldn't hear you.
In my 20s, I wish I had this. So, what do you think you wish you had when you were in your 20s?
In my 20s, I wish I had more patience.
All right. If I ask your team, what are your quirks or pet peeves? What do you think your team will say?
But I think the team will say that I am annoyed by things that are not followed up on, right? So they know that when we start things, I want to see them through to completion.
All right. Okay. So, the one last question that I have is actually something that I already asked you. So, I'm going to come back to it. If you could show your kids only one movie, what movie would it be and why?
I'm gonna go Adam on this one and say the Avengers, right? So it's
Ah,
a combination of team getting together, everybody's using their own superpower, going at it, and getting the job done.
love it. By the way, Avengers Endgame. I mean, I'm like such a big fan of the Avengers series, but Endgame particularly, I like it so much. I think this released at the time when I was actually supposed to move to Bangkok, and I was in Mumbai back then. So I think this was a day before I was actually supposed to take the flight. So while I had all the other important things to do, I still kind of made sure I spent those 3.5 hours, went to a theater, saw the movie, only then came to Bangkok.
Focus on your priorities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nadav, for being such a sport and answering all these questions.
It was harder than
It
I
was
thought.
awesome. I'm glad you thought that way. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. Uh, I think based on this conversation, I think a couple of key takeaways for me. One is I think I really liked what you said about the fact that while your manager or your organization kind of looks at how to kind of empower you or kind of have a growth trajectory for a person, at the end of the day, I think the onus is also on the person to actually have that vision for themselves, have a plan for themselves, think not at what they are currently doing or what is expected of them, but actually to think of what I should be doing if I want to be in a role 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and plan for the future. I think that's a key learning and key takeaway from me, for me rather. And I think another thing that I'll say is, in general, I think speaking to you, I'm reminded of this line: the more you associate happiness with curiosity, the happier you will be when your curiosity is satisfied. I think I definitely feel that way, Nadav, each time I speak with you, because there is something new that I discover, there is something new that I learn. So thank you so much again for spending time with me and talking to me on Taboola Talks.
Thank you, Shashi, for the opportunity and well done on the series.
Thank you.